I am Chaplain Brian, and I have worked in the California prison system. But I'd like to share a couple of experiences that convinced me that prayer does have a healing effect. One is of a friend who works with young children and adults who are disadvantaged or homeless. And one day a young man came in a wheelchair, and this young man had stick-like legs that were up to his chin. And my friend said to him, "Would you be interested in being healed?" And the young man said, "No, I wouldn't be interested." And my friend said, "Well, why?" And the young man said, "Well, I wouldn't be able to beg." The next day he came along in the wheelchair again, and my friend started to talk to him about God being life and truth and love and principle and soul and mind. And the young man sat attentively and listened. My friend then got him out of the wheelchair and walked along a fence supporting him, and he said he was pretty heavy. But each day he did this, and he spoke about the young man's perfection and that he was an idea, a beautiful idea of God that couldn't be limited in any way. And gradually the legs started to come down, and this young man took a few faltering steps. And after a month he was completely healed and walking about. But the transformation, I believe, occurred when he began to get a new view of himself as unlimited, as whole and complete and not needing anything. And gradually he began to be awakened. And this is the great transformation that can happen within each of us, that we can awaken to God's laws of adjustment in every avenue of our lives. Anyway, my friend sent me an email, and in the email this young man said, "No more wheels by my foot. I'm so very grateful." Anyway, let me share another story. I took this email into the prison for some reason, and I think the reason was that I was God directed to take it in. And when I went to the prison that night, I was conducting a service with women prisoners, and about 25 came out to go to the chapel. But at the end of the line was a woman with a walker and having extreme difficulty in walking, and she was helped along by two of the other inmates. When we got to the chapel, they helped her onto a chair, and they lifted her legs up onto another chair. And so our little service commenced. And the service was all about spiritual healing, how this can have an effect in our lives, how by turning to God with an understanding prayer, we can see clearly. During this meeting, the question of healing came up, and I shared this email about the young man. In fact, I told the story of how he had been healed, when suddenly this woman said to me, "Do you mean to tell me that I can just get up and walk?" Well, it was a moment of spiritual inspiration, I think. And I said to her with great confidence and conviction, "Yes, you can." And she got up out of her chair and she started walking to loud cheers from the other women. And she walked back and forth across the chapel. And there was great excitement at this woman's healing. Right throughout the Bible, there are significant healings in the Old Testament and certainly in the New Testament with Jesus and his disciples, and I understand for 200 to 300 years thereafter. But somehow this was lost in the theological melee of things and was only kind of resurrected again about 150 years ago, the idea of spiritual healing, of beginning to understand more about God, more about Christ Jesus. And the word Christ actually means, from the ancient Sanskrit, light. So Jesus was the light, and that's what lit up consciousness, and that's what lights up each one of us. So that there is a transformation, and we begin to see ourselves in a very different light, as whole and spiritual and complete and beautiful.